Hey, can you see me? Can you see me in there through that lock in the door? Because this is a very huge part of my psychology, a lock on a door. When I was a little kid, I was locked in my bedroom for bad behavior, which arguably there was a lot of. I was hyperactive. If it was nowadays, I'd be like ADHD on meds. But luckily back then it was a door lock. And so, being a bad boy and being locked in my room, it's part of who I am deep down. It drives my identity. The fear of being bad and locked in my room, still there. So being locked up, feeling not free. And I've created a new relationship with this, a conscious one. And as I create more of a conscious relationship with it, and I start to forgive myself for thinking that I'm still going to be locked in my room, so much more freedom and so much more power becomes available to me. I can actually create so much more in the world when I realize that I'm actually just afraid of being locked in my room, like I'm 8 years old, whatever. So how is this relevant to the end of discipline? The way that it works is that this stuff happens when we're really young. It can't not happen. If you're a parent, don't freak out. You are going to mess your kids up in some way. Even expressions of love will have them become addicted to that and seek it in a way that's not healthy. It's the human condition. So my parents did an amazing job, and I'm so lucky and blessed. But no matter what, there's going to be something. And so what happens is that this becomes a way of being parented. The authority on the outside becomes our authority to ourself. And so now subconsciously for my life, I've been treating myself in such a way where I lock myself up if I'm not behaving in a way that I judge as good, because I think society would judge that as good. So I judge it as good. And if I'm not being that, then I deserve to be locked up emotionally. Don't give myself the things that I want. But it's also something that I fear. I fear not being free. And so being locked in your room is one form of discipline. And then people would say to me, wow, you're so disciplined. And so, yes, I was disciplined in the sense of being, disciplined for when I was growing up, not hit, but like locked in my room. That was disciplined for doing wrong. But then that becomes in the older age what they call self-discipline, which looks like somebody who's very consistent and very committed to their work. And it may look like that, but what it actually is a self-locking, a self-punishment. So we call it discipline, and we say, hooray, this person is disciplined. But what we don't realize is that they are showing up that way because they're disciplining themselves in the same way they were disciplined when they were young. And the problem with it is it can be effective in creating in the world of form. It can be productive. Hey, they're getting stuff done, so is discipline so bad? I'm not saying it's bad, but what I've experienced is that a person will create and be productive even if they're not being disciplined, both at a young age with my son and also for myself. So I've been systematically removing discipline from my life. Now, does that mean I'm removing routine? Does that mean I'm removing habits and consistency? No. It means that I'm going deeper and inquiring as to where in my life am I doing anything at all out of the fear of if I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't be good. I wouldn't be enough. I wouldn't be loved if I didn't do that. And so there's lots of places in my life where I do things that you would say, oh, that's very disciplined. It's like habit tracking and productivity tracking and measuring results and things like that. But there's baby and bathwater in that. So for a time, what I did is I stopped measuring everything. I stopped all my habit tracking. I stopped anything which could be used as a way to discipline myself. And then after stopping all of it for a couple of weeks and just like living without any check marks or tick boxes or stars or anything like that, I started to bring stuff back in. But as I were to bring it in, I looked at it and I felt into was like, is there any aspect of this where if I didn't do it, I would feel bad or I'd feel like not enough? And it feels like I need this in order to be enough, or that whatever. Is there any texture of judgment in this tracking? And what I found is that more than half of the things, it was actually a tool to help me to find out if I was okay, if I was enough, if I was lovable, if I was being a good guy, a good businesswoman. Am I being a good businessman? Am I being a good self-development person? Am I doing enough journaling or enough meditating and things like that? It's like, wow, there's some texture of judgment in that. And so in those cases, I left the measuring out. Forget about it. It's not worth it. For me, it's never worth doing something from a state of being that takes away freedom, because for me, that's the highest value. I want to be free, but I also know that in freedom, creation still happens. And until you know that, it can be a bit scary to move towards freedom because you might think that means you're also lazy and unproductive. Not the case. A seed grows into an oak tree, an acorn goes into an oak tree in the same way that a human being will grow into their greatest capacity without any discipline at all. Some of the things I did bring back in, some of the measurements, some of the metrics, some of the tick boxes, because there were certain things that I found I actually just love tracking this and knowing. This is an expression of my creation. This is fun. So it's not about the measuring. It's about, why am I measuring? Am I measuring as a way to measure myself up to see if I'm enough? Or am I measuring because it's fun and exciting and it's information that I use to create with? And so the removal of discipline is really about finding the places in your life where you're doing stuff because you fear that you're not enough. And as you remove those things, you actually liberate energy. You set yourself free. And in that space of freedom, creativity can emerge and creating can happen if you're just allow yourself to follow those impulses and those intuitions that arise. So I could have a much longer 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour conversation around the alternatives to discipline. I'm happy to have that conversation with you, but that conversation is always happening in Creating.School. So if you're interested in joining my community, go to Creating.School and you can read about it there. We also have Creating.School on Facebook. You can read about the group. So yeah, it will be awesome to help you remove discipline from your life and find not only are you more free, but you actually are more productive. And this has been my experience. The less disciplined I am, the more shit I get done. I know it sounds like a paradox, or a contradiction, I'm sorry, but it's actually not a contradiction. It's a paradox, and it's true, and happy to introduce you to it in this little video, and I'd love to share more if you're interested, so join me. My name is John Patrick Morgan. I love you for being here. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye for now.